Hey listeners, Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a quick moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network that I know you'll love. In Your Element, hosted by Brendan Henkel and Daniela Norden, is a podcast bridging the gap between leadership and real talk in the dynamic world of higher ed. Every episode is a deep dive into the practical side of working in higher ed, featuring real-world tips, best practices, and use cases from Element 451 users. Join our hosts as they bring on savvy IT leaders, visionary college presidents, and leading voices in the field to share their experiences and insights. From the challenges to the triumphs of higher ed, In Your Element is your source for candid discussions, innovative strategies, and the impactful use of technology, especially AI, in personalizing the student journey. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or by searching for In Your Element wherever you get your podcasts.
So that's money that's going out. That's more investment. So it's not just a matter of billboard money that Timothy's going to use because he loves billboards. It's so many institutional resources that go into that. Sorry, I'm getting way off topic.
No,
you're
good.
About,
you're good. There's a lot of ways this conversation could go. But yeah, ask me another time about how I spent my entire marketing budget on billboards.
I will. I got you.
I didn't do that, but I absolutely would given the opportunity. So,
welcome to the EduData Podcast, a podcast that serves as your weekly guide to the data driving higher education. We are your hosts. I'm Jamie Boggs.
And I'm Timothy Davis. Join us every Friday for weekly breakdowns of the most important data, trends, and topics in higher education.
The EduData Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Hello and welcome back to the EduData Podcast. I'm Timothy Davis here with my co-host Jamie Boggs. Hello again, Jamie.
Hey, Timothy, how you doing?
Doing good. Ready for another episode. And in this one, we are going to do a sort of cut for time episode related to a webinar that you and I got to host a little while back for Enrollify, talking about how AI enables data democratization. And the section that kind of got cut for time in that webinar was a conversation we wanted to have about achieving AI-augmented data analysis at scale, or data democratization really at scale. So to kind of recap our webinar, can you just give us the context for what we talked about related to the problem that AI can solve to kick us off in this conversation?
Absolutely. So we had an early episode about the barriers to getting and using data, and it overlaps some with this in that we know that we have disparate data across campus. Not only is it housed in different areas, but it is grouped in different ways and organized in different ways, and the data doesn't always play nice together. So we have data everywhere. We have it from our student information system to our CRM to some guy's spreadsheet over in the registrar's office. Like, it's a little bit of everything. And even if we do somehow get our data together, not everybody has, in higher ed, you're wearing a ton of hats, right? Like, you got a lot of different jobs to do. If you're an admissions counselor, you have that's more than it sounds like, right? If you work in student life, you're doing everything. You shouldn't have to be a data expert as well to be able to write SQL code, to be able to write Python, or work in the R language, to do time series analysis or logistical regressions. I know those are words I heard in grad school, but if you don't practice them, you don't necessarily know how to approach it. So if you'd like to hear me go deeper into those problems or hear me stumble over the phrase statistically significant a lot, you can go check out the webinar, but that's the basis of the problem.
Absolutely, yeah. Say statistically significant 5 times fast is the challenge takeaway from the webinar. So please let us know how you do.
I failed that challenge during the webinar, but it was a good time. But we have these problems, and we did present some solutions but there's really one solution that can get a lot accomplished, I think, and that's what we want to talk about here.
Right, absolutely. So we talked in the webinar about how large language models specifically as a form of AI can augment our skill sets, teach us about data, and also write code that we could potentially use to query our data, transform our data, modify it, and just understand it and use it better, right? And we looked at an example from the ChatGPT Enterprise Edition, which is the paid version, where ChatGPT can take a file of data that you upload, a CSV, and actually write code and run it in the chat interface. It's a really cool tool, a little bit technically complicated. I believe it's the only chat interface or chatbot right now amongst that sort of class of chatbots that has that feature. And again, it's only available in the paid version. But basically, it uses a Python environment to write Python code and analyze your data, and can even produce visualizations that you can save out of the chat and bring to other forms of communication. Either that's an email or maybe a presentation. So really powerful. But the data that you upload to that chat doesn't just come from nowhere, right? It has to be generated from somewhere, and it has to be prepared usually before it gets to the chat. And achieving that, getting to the place where you can actually augment your data analysis with AI is not as simple as it sounds, and it is probably the work going forward for data professionals, IT professionals on college campuses is figuring out how we can get all of our data together, get it to talk together, and get to this place where we can democratize our data and empower all professionals across our campus to use data to answer their own questions and to make data-driven decisions. And so the first kind of pillar of achieving that, Jamie, is one that you raised, and I want to kick it back over to you, but it's basically creating a culture on campus of sharing data and working towards this shared goal.
Yeah, I think through the years, most professionals have grown more and more confident in the fact that data is useful, even if it's collecting interactions with the emails we send through our CRM, or how many letters that we send out or postcards get mailed back to us. Like the little things that we don't measure, we should measure, and they can tell us things. So I think people are growing to appreciate that more, but we continue to work in silos anyway, and therefore the data lives in those silos. And that certainly becomes an issue when I have data that could help you, you have data that could help me, and if we put our data together, we would both not only benefit from having each other's, because assessing data and analyzing data, the more data that you have to put into the model, the more accurate it's going to be, the more clear the answers are going to be, the outcomes. So we have to get to where we're more open about sharing data. And I'm not saying I'm going to put everybody's social security number in an Excel sheet and put it on Google Drive. Like, we still have to be careful with the data and make sure it's secure, but there are plenty of ways to unify that in certain places. And some student information systems will strive to do that and get data from everywhere and put it together. It can still be a little complex when you're doing that, and it doesn't always fit the way that we want it to. Some CRMs work to organize data to help with communications and interactions and that kind of thing. But getting some type of data lake or data warehouse is really the optimal solution there, that everybody's data can live in one secure location, and that there can be keys or association codes within that data so that I can tie this student to that record in admissions, to that athletic record, and to that housing assignment. Like, we can tie it all together via a series of those keys, and that way we can all utilize each other's data and support each other in their work in ways that we really didn't realize we needed to before.
Right. And I definitely want to talk about picking the right platform and picking the right sort of data centralization solution. But first I want to circle back a little bit to the creating the culture. I mean, one, you can kind of create that at the grassroots level where employees understand the goal, understand that that collaborating across collaborating specifically with data is important, but I think you can also make system level structural moves that can foster this culture as well. I really like to see an emboldened and a funded institutional research division. I think it's also really important to have someone in the enrollment management office that is data focused, that understands how data from various systems, various student systems can all integrate together, can all fit together, and then also has the business context, right? It's one thing to be able to generate a report that the government wants so that you can keep getting financial aid. It's another thing to understand what the needs are across our department and say, we need data to be able to make decisions about this. So how can I pull all of that together, extract it from various systems, and get us a data model that will accomplish that? So do you have any extra thoughts about that?
This is a complete assumption on my part, but I feel like higher ed is the industry in our country that sees the most money come through and cares, or not cares the least, but tracks least the ROI, the return on investment. I think marketing, sure, they're being told, hey, we don't have enough students, we don't have enough donors, but you're not actually seeing because we are in those silos. So sharing that data, I think, is going to help us all to not only better serve students, but better serve our institutions and provide job security for us and our friends.
Yeah, financial stewardship, absolutely. And I think ROI in this industry is incredibly difficult because the buying cycle is so long. I mean, you're talking about a multi-year buying cycle to get a student into one term. That's, it's a lot. It's a lot. And there's a lot that goes into an ROI model that an ROI model needs to consider. It's not like you're selling shoes on Amazon or something like that. Very, very different ballgame.
And then even maintaining customers, you may get them admitted, but then you could get 1 year of tuition. You could get 5 or 6 years of tuition. So you would need to calculate that in ROI, but you also have people working on retention. So that's money that's going out. That's more investment. So it's not just a matter of billboard money that Timothy's going to use because he loves billboards. It's so many institutional resources that go into that. Sorry, I'm getting way off topic.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways this conversation could go. But yeah, ask me another time about how I spent my entire marketing budget on billboards.
I will. I got you.
I didn't do that, but I absolutely would given the opportunity. So keep that in mind.
I know.
No, but would. I mean, in this, I see a lot of hope for industries here. I think that there's a lot of recognition about the need for this. And we've seen a lot of structural changes happen in institutions before. We've seen the rise of enrollment management as a department, as a C-suite position. We're seeing now kind of the rise of the chief marketing officer within institutions. So both of those require a lot of data, and so I think we're on the right track. But that's the direction to head is my thought there. So transitioning then to picking the right platform, that's kind of critical in the same way that you pick a student information system or a CRM and spend a lot of time trying to understand the needs. Picking the right system is also a little challenging.
Yeah, it is, because there are so many options out there, and not only are you looking for this is the most secure option to keep our data, this is the one that's most user-friendly to get the data out of, to organize, to clean, to get reports, but it's also got to play with your other systems, right? Not everything is, you can't go buy 3 different systems and then just automatically assume they're going to work together. I think most of them strive to, but those connections are just as important as the system itself. Those integrations are huge.
Right. And there's a lot of work to be done to figure out how one system is going to get data into another system. So there's still a lot of work for data professionals to pick that right system. At Element 451, our data team uses Snowflake as our data warehouse, and I think we've been really pleased with that platform. it has kind of a wide ecosystem of other tools that make transforming data and modeling data and then visualizing data really easy. It's also introduced a few generative AI capabilities that I think we'll probably talk about in another episode. But yeah, picking a platform is the most difficult. And then once you're in the platform, then it's a question of how do we combine this data? What sort of models do we make to make decisions off of? But that's, I guess, the last question for you, Jamie, is like, what are kind of the core models that we're working with as data professionals to provide our consumers, right, the people who need to use this data? What do those look like? When I bring that up, what comes to mind for you?
Just like I talked about disparate data earlier, the admissions office is going to have, maybe their data is going to be based on application type or territory, or maybe at the student level. Academic services and registration may have it at the course level or the professor level, that it's in an object that it repeats on the same topic, right? Whether that's the student, the application, the housing, the building they're in, or whatever. So every data set that comes in is going to have its own structure. So the models really need to be built in a way that can combine those objects, but also in ways that make sense. If I want to look at student data based on particular students, there needs to be a way for me to pull in their application, to pull in their athletic performance or participation. So there need to be those association tables or keys that can put it together. But there's really no end to the number of models that you can create when building that. It's just a matter of identifying the need, looking at the data that's available, deciding what you want it to repeat on or what you want to be kind of the core piece, and then building upon that. So I think everybody just coming together and saying, yes, my data is different than yours. Here's how it could match, or this is how we're going to associate them, is huge. But then you kind of get into, well, who's going to own this model or that model? And those are conversations to have at a higher level probably, but yeah, there's a ton of opportunity for modeling, and then you have that data at your fingertips just about whenever you need it.
Right.
A lot of the work's done up front, and then you just kind of develop it and tweak it as you go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, like, when you have data in a central place, those different systems can inform each other and inform the way that you maybe engage with your students, or the way that you construct your processes. You mentioned like the housing use case, and if housing data and CRM data is in the same place, you can say from the CRM side, filling out the housing form or completing that process is a conversion in and of itself. So the CRM knows, hey, this email campaign was effective because it generated this conversion, which was completing the housing form. But then from the housing form perspective, you can maybe pull from the CRM the engagement score. How engaged was this student through the recruitment process? How likely are they to complete this form? Or what data do I already have about this student that I can populate? There's also, I saw this use case was like matching students for dorms and for housing, right? Like, we could also use CRM data to inform that based on the interests that we've collected and the behavior that we've collected about these students through the recruitment process. So lots of ways that data can interconnect with each other. And then ultimately, you could talk about like a student health model, right? Where your central object is the student, and you look across their recruitment journey, their journey as a current student, and say, how is this student doing? Giving them an evaluation, trying to create an early alert system like we've talked before, and you've heard from Element before. So that sort of concept. Another model that I think colleges can really benefit from is what we call like an activity model. This is talk for maybe more data professionals, folks that are used to sort of modeling and transforming data. But an activity schema is basically a schema where all of the behaviors of a particular individual are modeled by row and are given a sort of type and a timestamp, and you can basically create a timeline of activity for an individual, a constituent or a contact in your database. And I think a really powerful pulling in activities from other systems, whether that's the SIS or the housing software, whatever it is that you're using. pulling those activities in as part of that constituent journey. So definitely look into the activity schema, you data professionals out there. We've got some friends at a platform called Narrator who have really advanced that thinking. So kind of an alternative to a star schema or an augmentation of a star schema. But can be really powerful when evaluating student health, evaluating student engagement, evaluating how they're doing on your campuses. So
yeah, it doesn't have to be a black box. We don't have to look at everything as, yes, admissions does their stuff and marketing does theirs and students magically show up on campus. We can look and see there was a page view and then a form submission, and then they got an email. They didn't do anything for 6 months. They got a phone call, and then they finished their application. So maybe we need to start that phone call a little bit sooner. Like, we can look at the journeys and the processes and improve and get better. And I know that we're trying to improve our materials and our conversations, but there are other things that we can do that we haven't even thought of yet. Data gives us an opportunity. We think of kind of math people and creative people being different, but the data gives us an opportunity to be creative in how we change things. But we got to get all the data together, which is what democratization is all about.
Absolutely. So to just kind of wrap us up here, we talked a little bit about the culture of data sharing or of using data together on a campus and working across silos and how you can achieve that both at the individual staff member level, but also structurally. We also talked about picking the right platform and talked about ways that you can combine data across systems to generate decision-making models. So hope that was helpful for you. This, again, was kind of a cut for time part of our webinar that we recently hosted, Jamie, for Enrollify, AI-enabled data democratization. So you can find that on Enrollify.com. Definitely give that a listen. Have a look at some of the examples that we raised for using ChatGPT's advanced data analysis feature. And so, yeah, definitely go give that one a listen.
Yeah, I think this is a good addendum to that conversation. And if you've just stumbled upon this podcast, we cover a lot of these things more in depth than other episodes and really dig into some numbers and some reports and new data that's out there. And feel free to go back and listen to our previous episodes, and we're going to have more to come.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending some time with us today. See you in the next one. The EduData Podcast is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month. We've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Artis Cadu, Dustin Ramsdale, Jeremy Tiers, and so many of your other favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.